welcome everyone. My name is Allison Heaney, Vice President of Learning and Public Programs at the Museum of Latin American Art. We welcome you today, Wednesday, September 28th, 2022, to this edition of MOLAA Zoom Project in conversation with the artist Ester Hernandez, where MOLAA Chief Curator Gabriela Urtiaga will discuss with the artist her work and career. MOLAA also acknowledges the support of the Genesis Inspiration Foundation, the Miller Foundation, Dwight Stewart Youth Fund, and the Arts Council of Long Beach for their constant support of educational initiatives at MOLAA. And a special thanks to the California Arts Council Exposure Grant for their support of this Zoom project. Each chapter of the MOLAA Zoom project features a conversation between the most remarkable artists from Latin America and Latinx artists across the U.S. and our MOLAA Chief Curator. Today, we focus on a series of specific artworks which require close inspection, a deliberate process of contemplation and exploration, and delving into the ideas surrounding the creation of the works, their sources of research and inspiration, in an effort to immerse ourselves in the world of the artists. In Chapter 25 of the MOLAA Zoom project, we're joined by multidisciplinary artist Ester Hernandez, who's best known for her depiction of Latina and Native women through her pastels, prints, and installations reflecting social, political, ecological, and spiritual themes. Ester Hernandez was born in California, San Joaquin Valley, to a Mexican Yaqui farm worker family. The UC Berkeley graduate is an internationally acclaimed San Francisco-based visual artist and has numerous national and international solo and group shows. Among other, her works is included in the permanent collection of the National Museum of the American Smithsonian, the Library of Congress, the Legion of Honor San Francisco, National Museum of Mexican Art Chicago, Museo Caso Estudio Diego Rivera and Frida Kahlo, Mexico City, the Museum of Contemporary Native Art, Institute of American Indian Art Santa Fe, Victoria and Albert Museum London. Her artistic and personal archives are housed at Stanford University. As we begin this presentation, we encourage you to share your questions and feedback using the chat feature below, and we'll also host a Q&A session at the end. With that, I'd like to hand it over to our Chief Curator, Gabriela Urtiaga. Welcome, Gabriela. Welcome, Ester.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alison, and all the MOLAA team. Hello, everyone. Bienvenidos a MOLAA. Thank you for joining us today. Hola, Esther querida. It's a real honor to have you with us.
Qué gusto.
Qué gusto. Esther, as one of the most intellectual and influential artists on the scene, through your body of work, you introduce us in different important topics that provide historical perspective on spiritual and political issues. And I would like to start this conversation talking about your beginnings as an artist and what are the key ideas that motivate your work.
Well, again, thank you for the invitation and saludos from San Francisco, San Francisco, we call it. Anyway, so I have a long story. Growing up in the San Joaquin Valley and to a farm worker family. So I would say I started my career in the grape fields because it's in a small little farming town. You don't have any art stores or anything, museums or galleries or anything along that line. So being a child, very, very young, working in the fields, I started to explore the organic materials that surrounded me and also to absorb the colors that change through the day and the horizon of the Sierra Nevadas. Those were like my connection with creating things to manipulating the world around me. It started from that point. But again, growing up in a huge family of very strong, independent women, and also my family also became involved in the Farm Workers Union. And they had been involved, my mother's family had been involved in union strikes in the 30s. So all of that was kind of part of my legacy too. Mm-hmm. So also, I'm very grateful to have such a rich cultural Mexican heritage that was very, very vibrant, and self-expression of all mediums and forms was totally valued. So my creative expressions and all that were valued. So all of my life, I devoted my life to sort of what? Talking about the world around me, giving form to my feelings and my ideas. But all this came together and really changed and turned around during the farm workers' marches and all of that social activity. In particular, I would say that growing up, we were very much devoted to the Virgen de Guadalupe. And we had seen her as a nurturer. That's kind of for the most part. But then when the farm workers came in through my little town on their march to Sacramento way back in the 60s, the Teatro Campesino did all of this incredible presentation of all the different art forms: dance, song, music, poetry, visuals with banners and all of that. And that was the first time that I had seen the Virgen de Guadalupe being used for political change as a protectoress. That was really different. So that was a real turning point in my life. And it all sort of came together at that point. It took me time, but that's where my art and my politics sort of came together.
Oh, thank you, Esther. This is amazing. And now we are ready to explore a little more your body of work. And I would like to put the focus in one of your most famous and important artwork that we are happy because it's part of the MOLAA collection, San Mat from 1982. And where you have created an open conversation about water contamination, but pesticides and the impact on farm workers, consumer, and the environment, right?
Yes.
And could you explain a little more about your message in this project and your approach and connection with the Latino community?
I had moved to the city just because there were more opportunities for me as an artist. Plus, I wanted to be a hippie and sort of just experience other things besides being a country girl. But I always went back to visit my family. And in particular, I went to go and visit my mother, still in the very rural countryside in the little hometown where I was born and raised. And she was boiling water. And I couldn't figure out why she was boiling water, because it was like 110 degrees outside. It turned out, she told me, that they had closed the wells in the barrio area in particular, because it was found to be contaminated with all kinds of pesticides and chemicals that had been used for just generations. I mean, many years of just the building up of all these chemicals, and they didn't know how to clean the water, and they still don't.
Yeah.
So they had shut the water down, and so people were having to buy bottled water or boil it. So anyway, so this was very disturbing, because it was also one of the times when I had several family members who were dealing with cancer, and it really made me think a lot about the fact that being farm workers, we were totally enveloped in chemicals. We were breathing it. We had it on our clothing. We went home and we were drinking it. We were bathing in it. So it was like we were just consumed in it. So it was very disturbing to me, but I didn't know what to do. So it took me actually about 2 years of really thinking about it. And I could do like everybody else was doing and ignoring it and acting like it wasn't happening or that it didn't happen. So, but I couldn't do that. So I decided that I needed to create some sort of an image, but I didn't know what to do. So one day I was going to visit my mother again, and I saw the sun-made image there on the roadside and the grape fields, because most of the work that we had been doing in that area was for the sun-made raisin industry. We would pick grapes that would be laid out into the fields to later be turned into raisins and then be sold by the sun-made. So then when I saw that, I said, there it is. There it is. But again, excuse me, I wasn't quite sure where to go with it, but I've always loved dualities. And so I thought, okay, what is the other side of this image of the innocent farm working woman, this young virgin, blah, blah, blah. So that's when I decided, and again, looking at Posada, Guadalupe Posada's work, to find like models of skeletons who are expressing this madness. So that also influenced me and played into it. So eventually I decided to turn it into a screen print. When I did it, I couldn't give it away. Nobody wanted it. It was too different.
Yeah.
People were used to seeing farm workers as men out there, individual. But anyway, all in all, later on, about 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years later, somebody wrote about it. Dr. Shifra Goldman, she wrote about it, and she said it was the first piece that connected farm workers with consumers and the environment. So, but it took a long time for it to be accepted because it was very early in the environmental movement. And let me also tell you this, to this day, I'm talking about, what are we talking about, 40 years plus? I have never been able to show it in the San Joaquin Valley where the story comes from. It's always been censored. It's been shown all over the world, but not there.
Right. Oh, thank you, Esther, for sharing all the research that you create for this particular topic that is so necessary also today, right? It's so important.
So, yes,
Yeah.
all over the world.
All right. Yes, it's true. And Esther, the next artwork that we would like to explore is Mis Madres from 1988. And as an artist, but as a researcher also, you work a strong conscience about the legacy in traditions, the pathway through syncretic ideas imposed, and the layer of meanings that result of the connection with the land, right? And I would like to know if you can tell us about this artwork that you create with the idea to illustrate the fantastic poem of Alice Walker, From Her Blue Body, Everything We Know.
Yes, well, Alice is a longtime friend of mine, and she collects my work. So I had created this artwork many years before actually she asked to use it to illustrate her poem, which was totally an honor for me. The image itself is an image of my grandmother, Tomasa Medina, Camacho Medina from Selma, California. And it was she's always been an inspiration to me because she was just so full of life and energy. And rowdy, she loved to dance and enjoyed life to the max. So she's always been somebody that I've always wanted to honor. So, but it's kind of in honor of her, but it's in honor of all of our elders, all of our ancestors, to sort of celebrate and to sort of thank them for their creativity, for their resilience, for their defiance, you know, and all the love and the sacrifice that they put into nurturing us so that we can go on, you know. So that's kind of really what the image is about. And she had just passed a few years before, and it was really about the time when the Apollo mission had gone into space and come back with the most beautiful images of the Earth. So I wanted to sort of bring all of that together, sort of our Earth Mother and our spiritual mother. So that's kind of what this image is about more than anything. It's just, and also kind of just a little reminder that our ancestors are always with us and that we're never alone.
Wow, so poetic, Esther. Thank you. And well, we would like to jump to the next artwork, La Pachuca, from 2019. Oh, it's beautiful. This piece is, at the same time, this piece is like an extension of your beliefs that, and at the same time operate as a reflection. And I think as a manifesto in our time. I would like if you can talk a little more about your artistic practice, exploring this beautiful portrait.
This beautiful portrait, thank you so much for saying that, is one of my tias, who I refer to this now as the Pachucas, the cholas from the past, or the zoot suit women and all of that. Those are the mamas are the chingonas of now. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I was always fascinated by the stories I heard about the Pachucas, especially of my tia. You know, they were like overly dramatic with the way they were so cool. I thought they were just way cool the way they dressed and their attitude. But they really were challenging like a lot of the roles of the women and you know, their forms of rebellion in different ways, and their fashion and their beauty and their sense of being. So, but anyway, so that's kind of like honoring them and their defiance, their brilliance, their chingonahood. So the blades in the hair, because if you look closely, there are razor blades in the hair, because that was kind of a myth. Well, some say it was true, but others say it was just a myth that they carried, they put razor blades, they would hide razor blades. So in case they were in a confrontation, they were ready to roll. So I don't know if that's true. My tia was kind of like, after a while, she didn't even want to really sort of acknowledge that she had been a Pachuca. But so in talking with friends, they said that the razor blades were kind of symbols of resistance, and just to leave it at that.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, yeah. So I've always liked to draw bad girls, rebellious women. So yeah. I think it still has a lot of meaning and inspiration to a lot of us, just to be who we are, to find ourselves, you know, create ourselves, be whoever we are, whatever that means to us.
Exactly. Wow, Esther, thank you. And the next word that I would like to explore is the wonderful Libertad from 1976. That is clearly a reflection of your activism through the art, right?
Yeah.
And could you tell us about your message in this powerful image where the statue becomes a political commentary of the situation of the colonialists, right? And how you are demonstrating and revisiting some concept in the society?
Well, this is an etching that I did when I was a student at UC Berkeley. And I was learning etching. I was learning etching and aquatint and all of that, printmaking. And it was in 1976, which happened to be the American bicentennial. So there was all these images, you know, the Statue of Liberty and Uncle Sam and the Puritans and all of this that had really nothing to do with me necessarily, or my feelings about the bicentennial. But what was missing to me and to a lot of my activist community was the Native American presence in the Americas, to acknowledge that presence. Our tens of thousands of years that Native people through all the Americas have been here. So there was no mention. And so that's where I decided. And I like to use humor in my artwork too, I have to admit. So I think it's sort of, you know, rather than just hit somebody in the face with something insulting, but to use a little bit of humor, it sort of like makes them laugh and sort of makes it a little easier to sort of maybe sit with the image and try to really figure out what it's about. So I kind of approached it in that way. But again, it's like it's like a self-portrait of myself, finding myself, really digging into my ancestry, acknowledging my Native American indigenous roots, which are thousands of years of presence here in the Americas, but also my being here in the United States, and acknowledging that, but also understanding that we are here, we're not going away. And that in some ways we are changing the face of the contemporary American, US American, all of it, cultures. So it's
Yeah.
kind of a blend, sort of a hybrid image. So that's kind of more or less kind of what I was trying to do with this image.
Yeah, it's so powerful, Esther.
I was also studying anthropology, so I was really fascinated with the Mayan culture.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And
Thank you.
Esther, you are always interested at the same time that you say talking about women and their connection with social justice, right?
Yes.
And in this particular piece that we can explore a little more, that I really love, the piece is La Virgen de Guadalupe Defendiendo los Derechos Xicanos from 1975. And you want to generate a collective reflection through your work and also present as the body as a resistant instrument, right?
Mhm.
Tell us about this particular piece that is in a new interpretation and appropriation of Guadalupe that you mentioned before.
This is again when I was a student at UC Berkeley studying printmaking, etching, that I had created this image. I had a drawing that I had created several years before, maybe 2 or 3 years before. And then when I was studying printmaking, I decided that that might give me an opportunity to like take it into another form and to reproduce it. So, but again, this was a coming together of like a lot of different ideas. In some ways, I would say the genesis of it might have been at my grandmother, one of mis madres, my maternal grandmother. When she passed away, at the church, they would give these little memorial cards, and they always had the Virgen de Guadalupe on it. But it was like the traditional one with her hands, like down and very passive. And when my brothers and sisters in our family saw it, we just cracked up. We said, that is not our grandmother. She was very vibrant and full of life and energy and spirit. So that stayed with me, that maybe it might be interesting to create an image that sort of showed the other side of women. Certainly we are nurturers, but also we are very strong and vibrant. It's like the duality thing again. So one thing led to another. That was in the back of my mind. But I was also sort of involved with the Chicana feminist movement there on campus. So it was also a time when we were learning how to, self-defense, like self-empowerment. So I had taken a couple of classes in karate, which I was no good at, but I liked the outfits. I thought the clothing were really hot. Anyway, so it's coming together of all of that. Myself honoring my grandmother, and also it was like so much social activism going on that it was kind of ultimately what I really felt was a rallying call for women to sort of take a stand, to get involved in making change, in celebrating our culture, dealing with the different issues that were sort of tearing apart our community, trying to find solutions, but by working together. That's kind of what this is about. Now, but the minute I did it, some friends of mine were putting a book together and they published it. And before it was even dry, I was already getting criticism. Oh, you hate men, or you hate the church, you hate this, you hate that. And I'm like, what? So anyway, but as it turned out, I mean, I've been told by scholars, art scholars, that it is the very first one that sort of created this wave of the new interpretations of the Virgen, and sort of making her more relevant to our times and our issues that we have to deal with in the contemporary moments. We have like the nurturing part, which is beautiful. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a tia, all of that, I get it. But we also have to be strong and out there, taking stands, speaking up. Otherwise, nothing is going to change.
It's true, Esther. You are an inspiration. And thank you. And to finalize our conversation for today and open the Q&A session, I would like to close the analysis of your work with the amazing La Virgen de las Calles from 2001, where you reflect on the civil rights of immigrant people. And also we will have the opportunity to see it in person in a new show at MOLAA, curated by the great artist and scholar Amalia Mesa Vines next month. And I would like if you can tell us the context of this work where you are visibilizing the situation of immigrant people here in the US.
Well, this is a pastel. I use a lot of photography in my artwork. I sort of set things up. And this was a woman, she's still around selling flowers. Just a couple of blocks from here, she would be selling flowers. And I guess I purchased at least $500 worth of flowers from her through the years. I knew her by first name. She always greeted me and this and that. But one day I asked if I could take her picture and I pulled out my camera and she jumped back about 10 feet. She treated me like I was a migra. Okay, so then Galeria de la Raza was just pretty much right across the street. So I told her, please come with me so they can tell you who I am and what I'm about and that I wouldn't do anything disrespectful to you. And, you know, telling her a little bit about where I was coming from, even though it wasn't really quite clear to me what I was trying to say, but she had always sort of been so beautiful. And I just really honored her entrepreneurial spirit to like come from Mexico, not speaking English, but you know, I could go on and on, but she still found her place, recreated herself, made a place for herself in order to provide for her children. And to me, that was really something to be honored and respected. So that's why I wanted to create an image of her. So what's interesting is when I was drawing this, Sandra Cisneros was in town and she came by my live workspace here in San Francisco. And I was still working on this image and she said she wanted to buy it. So I told her, it's not finished. And she said, I want it. Ay Dios, sorry. And then I told her, she said, I still want it. And I said, well, I don't know when I'm going to finish. She said, I want it. And I said, and I don't know how much I want for it. She said, I want it. Anyway, it went back and forth about that. So she ended up buying it. And she said, because it reminded her of her grandmother. Not only visually, but also that spirit that our ancestors had to like do whatever it was to be able to contribute to the well-being of their children. And that's us. I mean, we get that. That's how we are here and healthy in, you know, ideally in body and mind. And we have to be grateful to them. Anyway, so this was to honor that spirit, that mujeres, our ancestors, and their great devotion and sacrifice that to us. So Sandra ended up donating the original pastel to the National Museum of Mexican Art in Chicago. So I'm very grateful to her. She's a very long time and wonderful friend of mine and one of the comadritas of many, including Amalia, who have been part of our community and nurtured me and so many people.
Yeah. Esther, this is amazing. Thank you so much. And if you like, we would like to invite you to start the Q&A session with our audience. And Daniel, the curatorial assistant, he can start to read the question for you, Esther.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, hello.
Hello, Daniel. Hi.
All right, we have our Q&A section open if anyone would like to deliver any questions.
Ay, Dios. Okay. Thought I turned it off.
Just while we're waiting for people to write in, there were a couple of comments I did want to share. A few people listening to your chat were so excited that in the 2000s you were already acknowledging and elevating the voices of street vendors in California. And also love the idea that that image of your karate virgin was emphasizing what a big deal she is to the Mexican community. That thought, this kind of movement emphasizes that kind of symbolism as well. And we had a few other comments too. Love the detail in your work. So fascinating. And what a great honor and privilege to have you here today. Thank you so much for sharing your stories and your wonderful pieces. One comment from Carol, very cool that Esther's friend with these other badass women. Sandra Cisneros and Alex Walker. Just had to read that out loud. Again, feel free to use our Q&A if you have any questions. I know, Daniel, you may have a few already too.
Yes, actually. Oh, one just came in actually. This question says, can you discuss some of the other printmakers, master printers, etc., that you have worked with throughout your career?
I would say some of the main people that I worked with right at the beginning, because the way all this came about, when I came from the countryside and all of the movimiento that was going on there, mostly around farm worker issues, when I came into the city, it didn't take very long for me to connect up with the Chicano civil rights movement here in the Bay Area. And what was going on was the focus, because we didn't have access to the media, television, radio, the whole bit. It's different now, but with social media. But back then, in terms of the arts, there were two different areas where we saw that we could sort of reach out in a way that was not necessarily easier, but more accessible. And that was through printmaking and murals. So I had a chance right pretty much when I arrived to sort of get involved with working with Malaquias Montoya, who was a master printer, was a wonderful person, just really, I think it was really important for me to have met up with him at like a very early stage of my learning screen printing, because he was somebody that was very open to whatever ideas you had. He had a lot of respect for our own self-expression and our own ideas. He was more interested in teaching us technique. So although he did want us to sort of be a part of the movimiento, to contribute our art to make change, that was always clear. So he was one of the very first people that really impacted me. And he was also from the San Joaquin Valley. He was also from a farm worker background. So another group of people, I would have to say, was the Mujeres Muralistas, which were a group of women that I later became part of the group, creating murals here in the San Francisco, in particular, the Mission District. And they were, the people, well, there was Consuelo from Venezuela, and there was Graciela, who was from LA, and Patricia, who was from Texas, and Irene Perez, who was from Oakland. So it was like a really fabulous, wild mixture of women. And they were also very much involved in both screen printing and creating murals. So they also fed my mind, my spirit, and my energy in terms of choosing screen printing in particular as a medium for me to give form to my ideas, but also to be able to share them like on a different level than I would like from an original. So, but I've always liked to do original pastels. I've always done whatever I wanted, period. Some
Okay, we're getting,
political, some celebratory, whatever.
we are getting a few more questions here.
Okay.
Here's another one. Can you talk more about the Japanese printmaking influence in your work?
Oh, thank you. I love that question. Growing up in the little barrio where I did, and it's called Dinuba, California, Tulare County, Presente. It was a really interesting little barrio. It was like those days, because I'm 77, okay, darlings. And so I was born during the war, World War II. So, and that little barrio, actually I was born in, it was Chinatown, believe it or not. There are Chinatowns all over California. small little car, because it was very segregated back then. And the Chinese, when they first came, probably around the turn of the century, they had to live on the west side, the land that wasn't developed for the most part, let's put it that way. So when the Mexicanos and the Koreans and the Filipinos and the Japanese, everybody sort of landed up moving into these little towns, we all were pushed into Chinatown, which was kind of cool because then, you know, there would be all these different cultural events and people and food and languages sort of in this very tiny little town that we sort of got to know and respect each other. But one of the most powerful influence for me were the Japanese community. I became very close friends with a young woman, and we pretty much spent our whole childhood hanging out and sharing our culture. And my father also worked with a Japanese farmer, so he also knew some Japanese. And I learned some Japanese, but mostly bad words. You know how that is.
Yeah.
So, so I had like a lifelong interest in Japanese culture that I shared with my son. And then he landed up going to Japan and marrying a Japanese woman. So I have a granddaughter now who's half Japanese. So I've been to Japan 24 times, hoping 25 this year. But one of the things that I really learned was, it was like when I was a child, which is really, you know, like there are no bookstores, there are nothing out there. But my friend would shared with me, like she would sneak out little albums of like, and they would have like handmade paper washi. I mean, things like that. And then she would also show me these like tissue papers, these magnificent papers, which I still love paper because of that, with the calligraphy. And I'm like, oh my God, that is just so beautiful. And that kind of stayed with me. And it wasn't until much later that I kind of understood a little bit more about, you know, the power of line and all of that. But I already had that in me. So when I saw some of those, that calligraphy, the spirit, the energy that was there was like really stayed with me. So those are the kind of things that I sort of are still kind of part of when I create work. Sometimes a lot of that, I try to like make it look like Japanese paper, or I try to like in my ofrenda with the woman with a tattoo, there was an earlier piece by a Japanese master who had like probably a prostitute with a dragon on her back, with like tattooed. So a lot of the influences are there without doubt, without doubt.
That's a wonderful response. I love that.
Oh, thank you.
We have another question coming in from Leslie. What is your favorite printmaking technique to practice?
To favorite, well, it kind of just depends what I'm trying to say. Because if it's an image that sometimes maybe I think or people tell me that I should want to like think about sharing it, because there might be an interest out there, I'll do multiples. And that could take the form of screen printing. I do like making my own like lino cuts. There are different materials now. I do like, I love stencils. Like I love stencil art. To me, some of the graffiti stencil art that's out there that is spontaneous, nobody has a connection to it. It's dealing with immediate issues, things that are like right in our face. To me, those are the most exciting works that are out there. Because when you do a print, there's like a lot of thought, and you have to sort of like really plan it out, and it's going to come out opposite and this and that. So it just depends what I'm going to do with it, what I think I'm going to do with it. Sometimes I'm happy just to do like a paper cut and just slam the image on there, print it, and that's it, one. Sometimes it doesn't work and I just destroy it or tear it up. To be honest with you, at this age, because I'm 77, it's not so easy for me to do printmaking anymore, like the multiples. So for the last few years, when I do create a print, I land up working with master printers, which most of the time it's always fun. Sometimes I'm not going to be saying anybody's names or anything like that, but sometimes it can be very difficult because they insist on the colors the way they want, and making a lot of decisions that are mine, really. But in general, that sort of made it easier for me to make some of my recent prints is collaborating with different master printers or organizations. So, but it's not so easy anymore because yeah, when you get older, there a lot of things happen, your neck, your ears, your eyes. I mean, it could go down the line. So, yeah, it's more challenging, but I have a project in mind.
Right. Have some more questions coming in. Did you ever receive negative criticism from the agricultural companies you commented on in your works in the 70s?
Well, I had a primo that works for Sun-Made Industries, and he liked it. He got a big kick out of it. He thought it was funny, which was meant to be, but there was more to it than that, of course. But again, I like to use humor. The most important feedback to me was my mother, because it was really came from her story. And as long as it was okay and respected from her, I don't care what else was coming after. It didn't matter. She felt that it was important. She was proud of me for doing that. But I had to protect her too, because that image is, because agribusiness has so much power in the San Joaquin Valley that it could really endanger her life. She would have to literally defend me, and I didn't want to put her in that position because she was already up in her years and all of that and was living alone. My father had recently passed away. So, like I say, it's never been shown there, and it probably will be shown now because there's Arte Americas run by the fabulous Carissa Garcia at the helm there, and they're planning a number of activities. So it may be time, the time has come that I will be able to show my Sun-Mad raisin, there after 40 some years. But during all this time, okay, there were times where I was asked to show work in Fresno, in that area, and I would submit my Sun-Mad, and it was always rejected. And they told me because the farmers had so much power over the galleries and the museums in that area that they were afraid that they would lose the little inroads that they had made into the museum. So I understood that and I respected that. So there has always been pushback, rejection, censorship on that level. And if this person that I know, not really well, bought a postcard from me and he mailed it to the Sun-Made industry there in Kingsburg, which is just right down the road from where I was born and raised. I never heard anything back from them, but I had mentioned it to some friends of mine that were like these chingon lawyers. And they told me, if anybody messes with you, you just call us, because there's a freedom of speech, the freedom of expression. And I'm like, all right, por favor, great. So I have their back, even to this day. But I know they heard about it because when I've Googled sometimes Sun-Mad to see what's up, it cracks me up to see that it's connected up with Sun-Made. I can't even say it anymore correctly. It always comes up together and I'm like, oh my God, escándalo. But recently, just to tell you another thing that happened with that image, a friend of mine told me that she had seen that my Sun-Mad t-shirt that I create was being produced and distributed in China. So I had a lawyer friend of mine get in touch with them. Of course, they shut it down right away. But anyway, that was really interesting just to see that it's out there in the world. Anyway, I hope I answered the question because that was a long story there. But yeah, no, it still is, just to add to that, the farm workers too, that image makes them really nervous. And I understand that because it's like shaking the ground of their livelihood. A lot of them are like undocumented. Everything is very tenuous. So they don't want it. They again, like my mother, they would have to like take a stand, and it's not fair to them. they have too much on their plate already. So yeah, so that's still I understand that too. I would never force that image on people, you know, if they aren't safe and feel comfortable with it. I won't.
All right, this next one's going to be kind of 3-in-1 question.
Oh.
It's asking what your favorite piece, medium, and artwork you've made so far is.
Well, that's kind of easy. None of them. Otherwise, I
None of
wouldn't
them.
have any reason to continue making art. But I would say the one that probably has the most meaning to me in terms of who I am and how it surprises me that the impact that it's made in the bigger world is my son, Mad. Because I think that really is like in honor of my background, my farm work, especially my mother and my father. It's my way of honoring them and speaking up for them. So, and the fact that right now it's like pretty much shown, it's been shown pretty much all over the world, and it's, you know, like all these major connections, and everybody is understanding the importance of water. And this one is talking about the contamination of water, the land, the poisoning, and how we're all connected. It's all connected. We're all connected. We're all part of the whole world. It's like we are water. Maybe a little bit of tequila, but that's another story.
Great. I think we have enough time for just one more question.
Okay.
How does it feel now to be portrayed as an icon in art by younger generation of Chicana artists?
Well, it's kind of cool. I'm glad I survived long enough to sort of get the feedback, to get the acknowledgement. I enjoy mentoring. It's something, I was a teacher also for like about 45 years. So it's something that I've always enjoyed, being around young people. And so I really am very appreciative of the teachers that are out there, the ones who have really taught our students about Chicano, Latino art. So I get like, you know, a lot of times I'll go someplace and somebody says, "Oh my God, I'm so happy to meet you. I saw your work when I was like in the 3rd grade," or whatever, you know, or whatever. Or I became an artist because I saw your work and it influenced me, or I wanted to study printmaking. It's wonderful. I enjoy that very much. And it's something that I'm still doing. I'm still talking. I'm still getting that energy. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm going to be interviewed by a 12-year-old this coming Sunday who's doing a project on art, Chicano art, and I don't know what else, something, and aging. I said, "That's me, baby." So anyway, so I enjoy things like that. I learn a lot by interacting with young people, hearing their feedback. It inspires me, and it makes me feel good that I contributed in some way to hopefully to make it a bit better world, or at least to make people think, but also to celebrate our culture. We have such a rich, beautiful culture, you know, and our ancestors are looking at us and pushing us, and, you know, and we're so blessed to have the music, the arts, the dance, the singing, the poetry, the visual arts, the film, all of that. We're blessed in that regard. And so I always remind them about that, you know, that this is our blessing, that use it. This is a gift. Treasure it, preserve it, promote it, make it. ¿Qué más?
I love it.
That was wonderful.
This is when I wish we could applause and you could hear all the
Yeah.
virtual
Yeah.
applause.
Thank you.
I know there's a
you.
number.
Thank you so much. Thank
So
you.
we have a few in the chat. Just thank you for your stories and your art. Absolutely wonderful words of wisdom. You've got a lot of applause going on here in the chat.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel, and thank you,
Yes.
Esther. Thank you for this fabulous conversation, for your beautiful energy, your knowledge, your experience. Thank you for sharing with all of us your amazing work. Thank you so
And I
much.
thank you too for making this possible. And I thank all the audience that took the time to be here with us. So, adiós. Hasta luego.
Hasta luego, Esther. Muchas gracias.
Igualmente.
Nos vemos.
Adiós.
And just for everyone who's logging off, just a reminder, we are seeing Frank Romero as our next artist for episode 26 on October 26th. So please join us for that. You can also visit us at MOLAA.org for updates about the exhibition, where Ester Hernandez's work will be featured. So it'll be wonderful to see it in person. Thank you again to Gabriela. Thank you to Ester Hernandez. Thank you to Daniel, our audience. We had a wonderful time here. We'll see you again for the next episode of Zoom Project.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you. Bye.